Andy, you've been pretty clear about articulating your concerns that if in a screen-based culture we're trying to hold our youth ministry to compete at that level, to be shiny so that we can get kids in the door or get them bought into the youth group, we're kind of buying into the medium, we're kind of buying into a value set that's not actually our gospel. Are there any circumstances in which you think it's appropriate to kind of throw that up and throw that on as a youth ministry, at least so that the kids come in with a comfort level that they are walking in continuity with the culture they're used to?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's certain ways that the hyperreal, the image, part of my argument, particularly through the lecture, was this idea that there's no way to avoid this. And maybe I'm overstating that for myself, but there's no way for me to avoid this. I mean, if you spent an evening with me, we would be down in my basement with my flat screen TV watching all the HBO shows that I have DVR'd. So I think often we set ourselves over and against culture, or we completely accommodate to culture, or to the hyperreal in this sense. And so I don't want us to say what we need to do is just tell kids it's bad or do completely away with it. I want us to genuinely engage it, and engage it at the level of what connects for us. And I think there is a legitimate way for us to say to young people, I'm constructing meaning, I'm making meaning, I find this series of shows, I find these movies incredibly engaging, and to use those to filter in to discuss real issues of love and joy and suffering and human interaction. So I think that there's ways that the youth ministry will take on certain forms of, call it popular culture or things like that, but I do think we should guard against and never do that as a way to win leverage, as if to say, well, what we really need is get kids to come, and if we just if we just have these video screens, if we just do it like this, that they'll come. I want us to push deeper, at a deeper level, to think of meaning construction. And I think that's what often goes wrong with churches when they're trying to just kind of take on the forms of popular culture or adapt the hyper-real, is that they actually do a disservice to young people even within those mediums, which they don't recognize that they're actually in very complicated, really rich ways making meaning with this stuff, making meaning with the bands that they love, making meaning with the TV shows and the websites and things like that they're engaged in. And I want us to acknowledge and affirm that meaning construction. But I do also want us to be aware of then, if it's true meaning construction, then we need to articulate as the youth workers, as the volunteers, our own meaning construction and what we think of this, and to put that into dialogue. So in many ways what I'm trying to push for is a more kind of dialogical, a more conversational interaction with young people, and not to use the hyper-real as a way to make our youth ministries shiny and alluring, as if they're like a lure to a fish or something, and we just want to hook them in, we just want to get kids in, but to actually see it as a zone, as a location to ask significant, deep questions, which ironically I think shatters the superficiality of the hyper-real and pushes us into something significantly real, to struggle with our questions, to struggle with our fears, to even articulate our doubts. And I have a certain bias within youth ministry that you can see in my writing, where I think that there's something fundamentally significant about wrestling with the human condition with young people. And I particularly think that who young people are, just developmentally, is that they're at this place where they're asking these big questions. That adolescence, in my definition, is kind of this awakening to your existential state, to the fact that you have to confront, maybe really for the first time, what is my lifetime and why do I live it? And that you are living between possibility and nothingness, and you have to kind of find your way through it. And I think we do a disservice often to young people when we even use hyper-real and use allure and spectacle sometimes to get them beyond those questions, or to move them away from those questions, or to even religiously protect them from those questions. And one of the things I'm pushing for with youth ministry in general, and youth workers particularly, is to actually move into those questions and to see young people as an incredible gift to us, because here they are, they're awakening for the first time, some of them, to the fact that they, like all of us, all human beings, are stuck in between possibility and nothingness and having to find their way between it. And young people are that on steroids in a sense. They have so much possibility before them, and yet are aware of the nothingness. So we say to them even things like, you can do whatever you want with your life, but you can't be on the varsity soccer team. So there's this balancing of possibility and nothingness, and I think youth ministry is a way to articulate that experience and seek for God in it. And I think there's a theological vision of a God who encounters us in between possibility and nothingness.